Welcome to Tell the Whole Damn World. We're the podcast that celebrates all things Cal and the prominent people associated with UC Berkeley, known to many as the center of the universe. We hope to put a smile on your face and help you come away feeling good about your connection to the greatest university on the planet. If you have friends who went to Cal who haven't yet heard about us, please tell them all about us. It's Monday, July 21st, 2025. I can confirm that neither of the two people caught on Kiss Cam at the Coldplay concert are in any way associated with Cal. And it's another great day to be a bear. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm your host, Reza Serafinejad. Today, we've got another special Cal history episode to share with you. And trust me when I say that you're going to want to stick around for this one, because even if you think you know a lot about Cal, we might surprise you in this episode. Do you know who Cal's first great football coach was? If you answered Andy Smith, like I used to think, you'd be wrong. And do you know exactly why we have a statue of two football players situated near the Valley Life Sciences building? And what that has to do with the big game? Hang tight, and we'll tell you all about a man who definitely deserves his rightful place amongst the all-time coaching greats in Cal lore. Some of you may be thinking, wait, we're doing back-to-back Cal history episodes? Well, the truth of the matter is that with summer vacation plans, we weren't able to schedule a featured guest for this week. But rest assured that come August, as we turn our attention to the upcoming football season, we've got a long list of guests who plan to be on the show, including Joe Starkey, Russell White, Javid Best, and members of the Cal football coaching staff, just to name a few. Before we get to our Cal history lesson today, I want to express how much we appreciate all of you out there listening and watching. Would you be kind enough to help us grow this podcast? All you need to do is tell your closest Cal friends about it. You can tell them to go to tellthewholedamnworld.com or just share us on social media. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn at Tell the Whole Damn World. And you can follow us on X and Blue Sky at Win4Cal. That's Win, the number 4 Cal. Speaking on behalf of all of us here, including Ahmad and Leslie, thank you so much for listening and watching. We appreciate you more than you know. I'll be right back with Leslie Mitchell, and we'll have a lot of fun learning all about Garrett Cochran and the Cochran Revolution that swept the campus long before Andy Smith roamed the sidelines.
This week in Cal history.
By now, I'm sure all of you are familiar with Leslie Mitchell. As a third-generation Cal alum, history and Dutch double major, and lifelong Golden Bear fan, she's our resident Cal history expert. She writes wonderfully informative articles about notable people connected with our university who have done great things in this world. You can visit her website, calbearshistory.com, or follow her on Twitter at calbearshistory to learn more about the people who have been a part of the rich history of the University of California. You hear me say this all the time, but we couldn't be more lucky to have Leslie as part of the show. Today, Leslie and I are going to talk about a man I'm betting all of you have never heard of, but you damn well should know about him. Cal's very first great head football coach, Garrett Cochran. Welcome again to the show, Leslie.
Well, thank you, Reza. I appreciate your kind comments as always. And yeah, when you say I'm an expert, I have to confess, when I first started looking at this guy, Garrett Cochran, I was doing a series of articles for the old California Golden blogs about Cal's greatest football coaches. And I was looking up, okay, well, who do I have to choose from? I mean, we knew who number one was going to be, and I came across Garrett Cochran, and I'd never heard the name before either. And I started reading up on him, and I was like, whoa, this guy. Why is he not famous? Why do we not know about him?
Right. I mean, he's kind of like just buried, kind of overlooked. And I mean, I think a big part of it has to do with the fact that he only coached at Cal for 2 years. And
And
we're
it was
talking about
back in the 1800s, so that's been a
right.
while.
Exactly. Exactly. So it's been a long time. But the revolution that happened under his guidance of the football program was nothing short of amazing. I mean, I think they called it the Cochran Revolution.
They did indeed. That was what they nicknamed it because it was so dramatic. But when he took over in 1898, Cal had never won a big game in 7 tries. We managed a few ties, but that was as well as we'd done. And we'd suffered blowout losses in the previous 2 seasons. The previous season, we were winless. We had not won a game at all. He takes over and we're undefeated, and we kick Stanford's butt. And in his honor, I'm wearing this shirt that I don't remember where I got, but it says, "I don't often hate, but when I do, I prefer to hate the Stanford Cardinal," which I don't really hate them, but it's a fun shirt.
Yeah, that's a great shirt.
So in honor of Garrett Cochran, who was the guy that set us on the right track,
that turned it all around. Right. I mean, and it's just interesting because I've been seeing a lot of these things going around on Twitter where they're talking about the number of national championships that a lot of the different colleges can claim. And Cal can lay claim to 5 national championships, which is pretty darned impressive. But when you look back at it and you look at like Princeton and Yale and all this, like from way, way back, they're actually the ones. I mean, the SEC is never going to catch those guys.
Yeah, the Ivy League is the all-time great as long as you don't go much past 1900.
Right, exactly. And that's where Garrett Cochran came to us from Princeton. And he was a lights out, stellar, all American player at Princeton. And I mean, the thing that knocks me out, and I mean, I'm sure you'll get into this a little bit more, but he was offered the head coaching position at Cal at the ripe old age of 24 years old.
No. 22. He was still an undergraduate. He hadn't even graduated yet.
22 years old, and being offered the head coaching job, and just the whole story of even how he was offered that job was great. But to get back to the whole thing about Stanford with the big game, it must have been enormously frustrating for us to have gone 7 years playing against those guys and not being able to win. And so you take a look at the 1897 season that preceded when Cochran took over, and that was a winless team, and we had lost 28-0 to Stanford. I think it was the biggest blowout at that time that we'd ever lost to Stanford. And we got rid of the coach, and I guess you can lead in with a story of how we even got Garrett Cochran to become the head coach.
Right. Well, personally, my theory about the 1897 big game blowout was that was the year that the song Palms of Victory was first debuted. And it's my theory it was played during the game. And we know that's the kiss of death. And that's why we got blown out. I think it's pretty clear. Well, one of the other reasons why we probably weren't very good in 1897 is that we had a coach, Coach Knott, N-O-T-T, who was actually a botany professor, rather. And had never played football and didn't really know anything about football. Yeah, coaching was just like everything else to do with football. Coaching was a real different game back then. You grab some professor and say, "Will you do this? We'll give you a couple extra bucks if you'll coach the football team." And they did. So poor old Coach Knott, he probably doesn't deserve quite the ignominy because he didn't know what he was doing. So at that point, we got and tell me if this sounds familiar. We got a new chancellor, and he said, "We got to have football success at Cal." And he got a guy named Everett Brown, who was a track star at Cal. And he said to him, "You go back east and find one of those guys who can coach us, somebody who actually knows something about football." So he went back, and he knew exactly who he wanted. I mean, and if he was Everett Brown himself was like a kid. He was probably in his mid-20s by that time. But he was given the permission to go back east and find somebody. And he knew he wanted Garrett Cochran because Cochran, not only was he was the captain of the Princeton team, which won the national championship and which just dominated everybody. He was also the captain of their baseball team. He was the first junior to be captain of either team at Princeton. It was always a senior before that. And I think the New York Times said he is the most famous name in all of college football that year. So he was big stuff. But again, he was 22. He was still an undergrad. But he showed up he found where he lived, and he showed up at his door and said, "We'd like you to come out to California and coach the Golden Bears." And at first Cochran was kind of like, huh, what? Who are you again?
Right. Where is California? What are we talking
I think
about?
he might have known where California was. I'm not too sure about Berkeley per se. But they offered him $1,500 a year, which was big bucks at that time, or relatively in the coaching field. His family did not want him to do it because they were sort of upper middle class folks, and they thought that that this coaching thing was for the riffraff to do that sort of stuff, and they really didn't want him to go all the way to California because that was way far away out in the middle of nowhere. But he finally decided it would be fun on a lark. Let's go out and live a little. I'm 22. Why the heck not?
Yeah, and he took the train, right? I mean, he was able to take, fortunately, he didn't have to take a ship to get here
in a covered wagon. Yeah, we were a little past that.
Right.
A little past that time. He's able to take the train. And he shows up in Berkeley. I think people had heard of him because he was famous as a football player. The Ivy League totally dominated. I think Princeton won 20 national championships in the 1800s, which is mind-boggling. But again, the national championships was pretty much between Yale, Harvard, and Princeton all the time. So there weren't a lot of competitors. So he was heard of, but people didn't really follow East Coast football all that much. So he shows up, but he decided to throw it open to everybody to come out to practice. Which again, remember, this is when, there's no recruiting, none of that. They're actual students. There's no scholarships. Well, there was no tuition, so that makes it easy not to have scholarships. But, it was just, hey, anybody who's a student at Cal, you want to play on the football team, come out and try out. So he picked the guys he thought were best. And this is where it was revolutionary. He put them in the positions he thought they would be good at.
Wow. What a revolutionary idea.
And if he saw that they looked like they had talent that would be better in another position, he would move them to the other position. When I first read that, I was like, well, duh. But no, that had not been the way it was. I mean, it was really, really a club sport before that. And not even like we think of those today. It was it was just a bunch of guys kind of getting together and like, okay, I want to be quarterback. Okay, you can be quarterback. I want to be offensive line. Okay, you can do that. Sure. It was just very casual, and it was just a bunch of guys. And a couple of years in the 1890s, they didn't even have a coach. It was just the guys kind of hanging out and doing their own thing. So he actually put disciplined practices. He had drills, all this kind of stuff they'd been doing back in the Ivy League for a while, and that was brand new to the West Coast.
Well, I think it was great. You sent along some of the pictures that we're gonna put it here for our YouTube watchers to take a look at. But one of them is of Garrett Cochran, and he's dressed, in a suit and a hat, and looks very well to do. He's like running toward the guys who are just all in a big scrum in the middle of a field. And
that was a practice, I think, in 1899. And you can see South Hall in the background. And it was, at that time, the football field was what they called West Field, and it's where the Life Science building is now. So, yeah, it's a pretty funny photo because he's rushing up. You can tell he's like, no, you didn't do that right. I got to go tell these guys what they're doing. But he's in his suit and tie and hat. It was definitely a different age.
That's for sure. I mean, the impact that he had, and especially defensively. I mean, you take a look at what the team was able to do, the players that he was able to put into the right positions. And some of these players, I mean, I guess you can list some of them, but they just had just great names from the 1800s, right?
We need more names like Kangaroo Pete Carsberg, Locomotive Smith, LOL Pringle, Beck Womble, which it's hard to even say. Yeah, they're just amazing names. And those were our big stars. Locomotive Smith, he was just extraordinary. He was he was the superstar. He actually, in the 1898 big game, was the first person ever to score 3 touchdowns in a big game.
Wow.
Which scoring was much lower generally back in those days.
Sure. Well, it sounds like it was very aptly named. Locomotive.
Yeah, it's not a great nickname. You just picture him like just barreling right through the line and nothing can stop him. Everybody going flying. Yeah, the defense was extraordinary. I believe in the 2 years that Cochran was our head coach, all outscored our opponents by a total of 363 to 7.
Wow. I mean, and that's just again to put things into perspective, right? 1897, we do not win a single game. All of a sudden, the next year in 1898, we go, was it undefeated?
We were undefeated, but there were some ties.
Okay, right.
Because ties were a thing back then. The total record for the 2 years was 15-1-3.
Well, there you go.
I think it was 8-0-2 in 1898, and then whatever the math comes out. Sure.
I mean, talk about night and day difference and the impact that he had on the team to just turn things around and it just so quickly. That's the thing that really just blows me away. That, as much as I love Cal, and, we always revere Andy Smith, of course, but Garrett Cochran, well before this, 20 plus years earlier, had done all of this, and to finally beat Stanford, and to not only beat Stanford once, but to beat them twice after having never beaten them before.
And not just to beat them, but to blow them out. The total combined score of those 2 big games, 52-0.
Yeah, that's pretty dominant. That's incredible. That's great.
And touchdowns were only 5 points back then, so you had to score more to get to 52.
Well, I think it was prior to the 1898 big game, right, when we had not yet beaten Stanford. And he gave this great impassioned speech. And with your permission, you pulled this quote of his little pregame pep talk to them. But I'm going to read it to you guys and try to make it, sound a little bit like how he might have made it sound in that time. And he said, "Boys, this is the opportunity of your lives, a grander opportunity to immortalize your names. Stamp them indelibly upon the pages of the history of your university has never been given to you. For 8 long years have those lobster backs made you bite the dust. It is your turn now. Make them bite and bite hard. Play every one of you until you drop in your tracks. And when you can't play any longer, we'll put another man in your place. If you are repulsed once, come at them again harder. Just think what it means. Here are 20,000 people to watch you. Some of you have mothers and fathers and sisters here today. Yes, boys, some of you have sweethearts here who are wishing and praying that you may win. Play, fellows, play for their sakes. Let your motto be, hit 'em again, harder, harder.
Hit 'em again, boys, harder. I think somebody had listened to Poems of Victory. Yeah, the hysteria for the 1898 game was unbelievable. I think because, after 7 years of just like disasters in the big game and a terrible team the previous few years that lost, and they didn't play a lot of colleges back then because there weren't a lot of colleges to play, but they played like the Olympic Club and various other kinds of clubs and military groups and whatever. But we'd lost to everybody. And then all of a sudden we come along, Garrett Cochran comes along, and we won every game up to that point, or we had won or tied every game up to that point. And everybody suddenly had that hope that, oh my God, this time we may be able to beat them. And the campus was just wild the week before the game. Classes got canceled for for rallies and such. My favorite is there was a giant banner, and this was 1898, which was the year that the Spanish-American War happened. And the U.S. battleship Maine had been blown up in Havana Harbor, which was one of the things that kicked off the war. Although, as it turned out later, it was just a defective boiler that blew up. The Spanish didn't do it. But people thought it was. Anyway, there was a gigantic sign on the campus in Berkeley that said, "Remember the Maine, beat the hell out of Stanford." And I've always thought that should be our motto. Although I don't understand how it works, how it fits together, but it's It's perfect for the time. Also, I love that he called them the lobsterbacks.
Yeah.
After I wrote that article, I don't know, 15 years ago, a bunch of my friends started calling Stanford the lobsterbacks. And I think we really need to start calling them that again.
Go back to that, right? It was so good. So
it comes
good.
right out of the Revolutionary War. That's what the colonists called the British soldiers, because they wore the red uniforms. So yeah, we got to beat those lobsterbacks.
Well, and so the 1898 season was, just like a complete turnaround and just fantastic. And then that set the stage for the 1899 season, in which they again just had tremendous success out there and beat Stanford again. But at the very end of that season,
well, let's not just gloss over that 1899 big game.
Okay, sure.
Because that was big thing. First of all, we got to talk a little bit about some of these guys. Kangaroo Carlsberg. I love this story. He was called Kangaroo because he could leap over the opposing players and keep on running, supposedly.
Well,
and one of the
didn't he have things like sewn into his uniform so
that's
that
what I was about to. Yes,
could lift him up and throw him over the line?
Right. Yeah, he had like straps sewn onto his uniform, and his teammates could use these straps to grab him and throw him over the opposing line, which I suspect wouldn't be legal today. It's a little bit more extreme than the tush push. Even.
Tush push, right?
And you've got you've got Locomotive Smith, we talked about, with his 3 touchdowns. You've got Percy Hall, who was the team captain, who ran. You want to talk about 98 yards with my boys? He ran a drive in the 1899 big game that was 108 yards. 108 yards with his boys.
Well, this is what really surprised me in reading what you put together, that apparently the field used to be 110 yards?
At that time, the field was 110 yards. So I guarantee you we will never have a longer drive in Cal history than his 108-yard touchdown drive that he ran.
That is awesome. That is awesome. But all that kind of reminds me with the, kangaroo nickname in particular, it kind of reminds me of something's come to light recently where Coach Mike Leach, who's passed away, but he apparently had this idea of how, like, would it be legal if we were to have a little person lined up in the backfield and just like heave him and throw him, like in a short yardage situation, just throw him with a ball over the over the line?
That sounds a little dangerous, among other things.
Among other things.
So, but another thing that's important about the 1899 game is that the mayor of San Francisco at that time, named James Phelan, he had bought a statue that had been sculpted by a Berkeley guy, by a Cal alum, Douglas Tilden, and it won prizes in Paris. It had been displayed there. It was considered like this major work of California art. And he had bought it, and he said that he would give it, he said in 1898, he would give it as a prize to whichever of the 2 schools, Cal or Stanford, won 2 of the next 3 big games. So Cal had won the 1898 game, so that winning 1899 gave us a statue. And I have the program from that game, which I'm showing to our viewers. And I think you have a picture of it as well that I sent you. Which has it's called the football player's statue. And if you're a Cal person, you recognize that it's on campus today down by the Eucalyptus Grove.
Well, and the thing that really surprised me too was apparently that was the first piece of art, sculpture, that was placed on campus anywhere.
First permanent piece of artwork, yes.
And students walk past that all the time, and I certainly walk past it when you just pass the Eucalyptus Grove, and if you're on your way like to the Alumni House or the Haas Pavilion, you walk along Strawberry Creek and you pass this and you take a look at it and you go, oh, okay. And
it's a guy standing there, some sort of an athlete, and there's another guy kneeling at his feet, and he's kind of fiddling around with his
bandaging him, basically, right? And I'd always thought, well, I knew that they had played football previously on that field. So I thought it was just like a commemoration of the fact that we used to play football there. But I did not know the backstory, that it was, an award, a prize to be won for having won 2 of those 3 big games in that era. So,
well, if you look at the base of the sculpture, engraved on the front of it, it says, the prize for superiority in football, which we will have forever, Stanford. Thank you very much. Superiority in football.
That's right.
And then on the back of the base, next time you're on campus, go down and take a look at it. On the back of the base are engraved the names of all of the players of those two teams, all of the starters, which basically was all the players. They didn't really do substitutions.
Right.
So you'll just see the name. You'll see names Hall and Carlsberg and Pringle and Smith. All their names are engraved in the base of that statue.
I mean, it's just incredible to me to see the history that surrounds that statue in particular, that you pass by and you think something of it, but you don't necessarily you don't know anything really about the history of it, because there's not much. I don't know if they don't have a
They
plaque
have
or
a
anything
plaque
there,
or something there
yeah,
explaining the backstory to it, but
totally, right,
because it's really, when I first learned that, I was like, that's really cool.
right, absolutely.
And I'd never looked at the names, or I never realized or thought about there being all these names engraved in the base and who they were and what it meant.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So that was huge. Yeah.
And then, so yeah, I mean, after having beaten Stanford, then again
30-0. Let me just add.
30-0. And yeah, I mean, I think you had the yardage totals, and it was something just crazy. I mean, they included punt return and kickoff return yardage in the total offense, apparently, but it was something like 800 plus yards of total offense that we ran up on Stanford.
It was like 875 to 450 or something like that. Yeah, in yardage.
Pretty good.
Pretty good. Yeah. Well, when you win 30-0, you're probably going to have more yards.
Well, and I want to get and just talk about this a little bit, because this all leads up to the fact that we had kind of become the power then on the West Coast, and it set the stage for the very first East versus West football competition, right, against Pop Warner's Carlisle Indians. Is that right? Is that
right? That was the Carlisle Indian School, which sounds a little weird today. It really was a school for Native Americans, and they were the power team that season. They beat Princeton, they beat Penn, they beat the big schools back in the Ivy League I think they beat Penn like 44-0. I mean, they were considered the best team in the United States. And somehow Gary, I guess because Cochran knew folks back there, he was able to convince Pop Warner to come out. They actually came out to California to play the game.
On Christmas Day.
On Christmas Day. One of the stories I love, too, is when they were making the trip out to stay fit, when they were in the Rockies, all the Carlisle players got off the train and raced the train up the hill in the Rockies. It's like, well, that'll keep you fit.
I'll say.
And it was the consensus was, particularly from our friends in the East Coast media, that Cal was going to get blown out, because everybody got blown out by Carlisle that season. By the way, Carlisle is where the very, very famous athlete Jim Thorpe went to school, who's considered to possibly be the greatest athlete in American history by some people.
Oh, yeah. Right.
Anyway, so they come out to play on Christmas Day. They played in San Francisco, as the big games always were at that time. And it was very tight. I wish I could say that Cal won, because the East Coast media said this is the national championship. I mean, there was no such thing, of course, as a national championship. But I'd like to claim this one. This would give us 6. But we didn't win it, so Carlisle gets the nod.
Well, but it was so close. I mean, it was just a safety, right? A 2-0 score.
It's so Cal. I'm sorry, I shouldn't say that. But yeah, it was a 0-0 tie, because the defense never let down. But unfortunately, there was a punt from deep in Cal territory, and Kangaroo Carlsberg thought there was a miscommunication. He thought it was a fake punt, and he lateraled the ball back to somebody, and there was nobody there. Which is like, oh God, no. And it went into the end zone. And here's where, it gets questionable, because Carlsberg actually recovered the ball like on the 1-yard line. So it would not have been a touchdown. And then after he recovered it, one of the Carlisle players came and jumped on him, and the ball squirted out and went into the end zone, and Carlisle recovered in the end zone. So I say the refs were out for us.
They should have blown the whistle.
Absolutely. Even the rules of the day, the ball was dead when he recovered. Although at that point, Carlisle would have had the ball. Presumably if they're punting, it was 4th down. So they would have had the ball on our 1-yard line. So, But yeah, it was a 2-0 final score. So that became that close. And actually, to give them whatever credit you want to, the East Coast media was pretty congratulatory to Cal because they had been predicting a Carlisle blowout, and all of a sudden they were like, "Whoa, those guys are pretty good. We're not expecting a close game at all." So Cal got a lot of credit, and the West got a lot of credit for the first time ever in football.
Right. I mean, even today, of course, you see this East Coast media bias and,
No, really?
but to think that Cal was the first one really to kind of stake a claim that, hey, football out West is pretty darn good. So
absolutely,
I think that
and
was,
it was getting better. I mean, that year, 1899, that was the first year we played Oregon. It was the first year we played Nevada. We played, for the first time ever, San Jose Normal, which is now San Jose State University.
right.
Normal being the name for a teacher's college at the time. So yeah, it was kind of a whole new opening of a lot more colleges to play against, playing the champion from the East, getting them to come out. I guess probably it was a great trip for the kids to come out to California and winning the statue, beating Stanford twice in the big game.
And just the fever that kind of swept the university. I mean, the Daily Cal had a little article that was written about his arrival back in the Bay Area, that 300 students awaited the arrival of Coach Garrett Cochran, and they chanted, "Here's to you, Gary Cochran." The college yells rang in the air, and college spirit was manifested as never before. At the sight of Cochran, all let forth a shout and rushed to grasp the hand of the idealized coach.
Yeah, it was a big deal. Well, considering how terrible we'd been for so long, that was when he was coming back from having won the big game in 1898. I might add something we skipped over a little bit and should not. He was also the baseball coach at the same time.
That's where I was just going, right? No, and this was a great story. So, I mean, not only is he the head coach of the Cal football team, but he's also the head coach of the baseball team. And if you have heard the story of how the axe came to be, the symbol and what was awarded for winning the big game, and Leslie and I did that in an earlier episode, then you'll know what happened here. But this was a game, I guess it was in April of 1899, and played in San Francisco, and Stanford was expected to beat Cal. They had a commanding 6-0 lead, apparently after 6 innings. But then Cal found a way to claw its way back and ultimately won 9-7.
The star of the game was Kangaroo Pete Carsberg.
Kangaroo.
He was the pitcher, and he actually ended up hitting a triple that drove in the winning run, and then scored another run himself. And then he came back out on the mound and punched him out 1-2-3 in the bottom of the ninth. And Cal won the game, and the students were excited, and they grabbed that dirty axe that the Stanfords had been using to chop up blue and gold ribbon, and the rest is history.
Right. Well, I mean, yeah, the Stanford fans were just insufferable.
Well, you didn't even have to say that. We knew that.
Using this axe to decapitate a, blue and gold straw man, and, mocking us and having fun with that. And so, yeah, I mean, Cal fans, again, maybe not the most politically correct thing to say, but, they jumped them and they took the axe and brought it back home to Berkeley where it belongs.
No, excuse me. They liberated the axe and took it to its rightful home. We know that.
But it's so cool.
Yeah, so I mean, this is what's so amazing about Garrett Cochran. I mean, he wins our first 2 big games. We get the axe when his baseball team is playing. I mean, what else could you ask for?
Right. Well, exactly. I mean, he is a guy that every Cal student should know about.
He got the statue of the football players. Yeah, I mean, it's just everything.
The whole thing.
Fortunately, coaching wasn't really considered a respectable career at the time. And Gary's family really wanted him to go back home and go to work for the Williamsport Wire Company, which sounds like something out of The Simpsons.
Is it a rope? Yeah, a rope company or something like that?
It's a wire rope company. I guess cable of some sort is all I can figure. Sure. So he did. He went back home. He said fond farewell to Berkeley and went back to Pennsylvania and took the job at this company. But he still had the bug. And so he ended up taking a job coaching Navy for a season. And then the next year, his alma mater, Princeton, came calling and asked if he would coach them. And he took them to, I think it was an 8-0-1 season, so another undefeated season. He was only 26, and I think his record was something like 35, 5, 4, and 3 or something like that.
Yeah.
You think, my God, if he'd stayed in coaching, he'd have been one of the greats.
Legendary, right? And he was inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame, from what I understand, which is
right.
Pretty darn impressive considering what? I mean, he had like 4 seasons.
Well, don't forget he had that amazing career as a player as well.
That's true. That's very true.
I think
but
but combined it's amazing. But he went back to the wire rope company where he became the president and was very successful. Unfortunately, then his choice, he decided to join the National Guard and ended up being shipped off to France for World War I, even though he was in his 40s, so he would not have been eligible for the draft. And he died in the war. He actually died of pneumonia. They were sending him home because he was so sick, and he died on the ship on the way back.
And at the age of like only 42 or something,
42,
right?
right? And he had 3 little kids, so it's very sad. But when the news hit Cal, people, I mean, it had been 18 years since he'd been the coach at Cal. But people were still, they remembered him pretty well. And for whatever reason, his name had not been included on the base of the statue, the football players statue. They were only the players that were there. So they decided to add his name. And if you look at the statue, his name is at the very bottom, Garrett Cochran. He's the only one that has his whole name, not just his last name. Although his first name is misspelled, they left off the second T on Garrett, which is, come on, guys. Anyway, they had a big ceremony. Every single one of his players who was still alive came there. Everett Brown, who was the guy who had originally hired him, the guy who'd take the train back to Princeton and hired this undergraduate kid to be the coach, he was the featured speaker. And there's a photograph of that I think we've got for the viewers.
That's the same guy who also had a part to play in getting the axe and liberating
the axe and bringing it back home. He also was one of the people that stole the axe, right? Yes. I mean, liberated the axe. He was a judge by that time. Not when he stole the axe, but when he gave his speech at the memorial for Garrett Cochran. So it was, it was very fitting that they finally did that. But it's really tragic that he died at such a young age.
Yeah, it was. But I thought it was very touching that Princeton, of course, eulogized him and had this to say about him. They passed on to the University of California. Every university has a football team that stands out prominently from the many other strong ones that are developed from year to year. In the University of California, the teams of 1898 and 1899 are looked upon as those which started the university on its victorious football career. With the coming of a coach from the East, football was played with a different spirit. And before the season had advanced very far, the whole university knew that a leader had come amongst them. The student body was awakened to the need for getting behind the team and giving them the support necessary to win. Garrett Cochran, class of 97 of Princeton, was the coach who accomplished this. He did much for California. It was his spirit which spread through the student body. His enthusiasm for and thorough knowledge of the game soon showed results, and the season ended with a victory and the biggest score California had ever run up over Stanford. I mean, man, that is awesome.
They actually published that in the Princeton, like their yearbook kind of deal as a tribute, part of their tribute to Garrett Cochran, which is like, yeah, they got it. And they're right now. It's, you got to get it's so important to get the students and the alumni behind the team and all of that stuff. You could write that today.
That's exactly right, Leslie. I mean, we should all feel very confident in the people that we have in place and let them do their jobs. And now it's up to us to show up and to support the team and to be there. And, I'm looking forward to this next season for sure. And I think, if Garrett Cochran were around, he would certainly have quite the pep talk to say about Cal this season. And I'm just so thrilled, Leslie. Like I said, when I read through everything that you'd written about this guy. I'm like, as much as I love Cal, as much as I know about Cal, how do I not know the first thing about this guy? And that's why
now you do.
Right. And that's why I said at the beginning of the whole episode here, it's like, I'm betting that nobody out there knows about this guy. And you should, because this guy was the game changer. He's the one, like Princeton said, who started Cal off on our winning ways. Prior to him, had never beaten Stanford. We beat him twice under him. We get the axe. I mean, you get the football statue, like everything that kind of led on from that point that was the genesis of it all, I think. So I'm just
well, you know what I want to say? I want to say, here's to you, Garrett Cochran.
Here's to you, Garrett Cochran. Go Bears.
And go Bears.
Thanks, Leslie. Thank goodness President Kellogg sent Everett Brown across the country to land Garrett Cochran as our head football coach. It's clear that his arrival on campus sparked the true genesis of Cal football as a West Coast power. The next time you're on campus and walk past the football player's statue near the Valley Life Sciences building, take a moment to think about and give thanks to Kangaroo Pete Carsberg, Charles Lowe Pringle, Percy Hall, Warren Locomotive Smith, and Garrett Cochran. I want to underscore and again quote what Princeton had to say in the tribute to Cochran's coaching career at Cal. With the coming of a coach from the East, football was played with a different spirit, and before the season had advanced very far, the whole university knew that a leader had come amongst them. The student body was awakened to the need for getting behind the team and giving them the support necessary to win. Hear me when I say this, Cal fans. That time is once again nearly upon us. As we look toward the upcoming season, we need that same support from the entire student body and alumni far and wide. Believe me when I tell you, if we all show up and show out, we're going to make the entire country Bear territory. This podcast is entirely a labor of love and a reflection of how much we love our university. Please help us grow this podcast by telling the whole damn world about us. As I noted at the top of the show, just tell all your Cal friends to go to tellthewholedamnworld.com. Share us with all your Cal friends on social media. Thank you so much for tuning in. We sincerely appreciate all of you out there listening and watching. See you next Monday. This podcast is about celebrating all things Cal and the prominent people who are passionate about the University of California. Do you feel Cal is the center of the universe? Do you bleed blue and gold? We want you to tell the whole damn world about it. Go Bears!